We're very happy and thankful to Tom, who came down knowing that there would be a storm going back, and we're very appreciative of it. Today we're just going to do two things. Tom wants to talk a little bit about reflective teaching practice, and he has some thoughts about some of the people who have influenced him, especially theoreticians like Schoen and Dewey, and we're very pleased that he's giving us an opportunity to hear some of his original work. And then after we have that talk, we'll have some questions and answers, and move on to the second event we're here today for, which is the Thomas Farrell Language Teacher Award. And that award is given to the winners, in the case of this year, the winners of an essay competition on reflective teaching. And we're pleased to have those recipients here today to receive their awards from Tom and from Gloria Park, whom you know and love well. And we are also publishing those essays. If you'll see on the back board, you'll see the screenshot of the working papers in composition and TESOL, and those papers are actually up and published right now. We will add hopefully the videotape of this to that page, so we'll have a multimedia issue, and we hope that you enjoy the essays. I'm going to ask Gloria if she would come up and give Tom a formal introduction, and then we'll be on our way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Candido. I'm very honored to be up here introducing our infamous Dr. Thomas Farrell. It's a long, I had to have a sheet because I couldn't memorize everything, so please bear with me. Dr. Thomas Farrell's professional interests include reflective practice and language teacher education and development. By the way, he graduated from our CNT program in 1996 and completed his dissertation under Dr. Dan Tenacito. He has been a language teacher and language teacher educator since 1978. Are you that old? Oh my Lord! And has worked in Korea, Singapore, and Canada. He's series editor for TESOL's Language Teacher Research 6-volume series. His recent books include just his recent books. There are too many, so I don't have all day to read them. So recent books include Reflective Language Teaching from Research to Practice, 2008 from Continuum Press. Teaching Reading to English Language Learners, A Reflective Approach, 2008, Thousand Oaks, Corwin Press. Talking, Listening, and Teaching, A Guide to Classroom Communication, Thousand Oaks, 2008. Let me catch my breath. Essentials in Language Teaching with George Jacobs, 2010, London, Continuum Press. Teaching Practice, A Reflective Approach with Jack Richards, Cambridge University Press. And Reflective Writing for Language Teachers, Equinox 2012, which I am looking for a reviewer for TESOL Journal. Okay? So without further ado, I want to have Dr. Farrell come up to the front and take over.
Thank you. Well, what a welcome. Hi everybody, I'm Tom. That's all you need to know. I'm an English teacher. Oh, you're not alcoholics. Hi, Tom. Anyway, the title of my presentation for what that's worth today is Reflecting on Reflective Practice. And the second part is a lecture in honor of Professor Dan Tenacito. I must apologize. Next week, I hear, is the IUP, the CNT retirement celebration for Dan. But next week, I'll be in Singapore. I leave on Friday, and I'm going for 2 weeks to do some lectures and workshops, and then another week in Korea. So I originally was coming down for a pint to wish him all the best. I didn't want to miss his retirement, so I was coming down for a pint, and I guess 2 weeks last week this materialized. And so I hope what I present today will make some sense to you. But it's interesting for me because Dan's retirement kind of coincides with a period of my professional life, I love saying that I'm actually re-evaluating my own stance towards reflective practice. And so I was trying to figure out, well, how am I going to combine these? And the best way I can, in my opinion, honor Dan is by going through my, let's say, movement into reflective practice through IUP. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you too long with that. And then the influences, my influences on reflective practice, and some of the recent work I'm doing to show you what I'm up to at this moment. So I hope that's okay for you. I have a web page, believe it or not, vanity page, if you ever have nothing to do. Don't hack it, please. Beginnings. Gloria was correct. I was a novice teacher in 1978 in Seoul, Korea. I was one of maybe 3 qualified teachers in Korea at the time. There are now about 6. But anyway, at that time we knew all the teachers. We had some great fun, and I was newly minted. I wanted to practice all my teaching routines, methodology, and whatnot from Ireland. Originally, I'm from Ireland. I'm Canadian now, but that's a whole new topic. I won't get into it. But in 1978, I washed up on the shores of Korea, and I started teaching ESL. I was a qualified teacher, high school teacher in Ireland at the time, and I was teaching business English and business studies, believe it or not. And I found ESL fascinating, not knowing exactly what it was. And I found out nobody else knew what it was either. And applied linguistics and TESOL was just beginning to develop at that time. There was a layer in front of me of people such as Dan and Jerry Gephardt and Freeman, Donald Freeman, David Noonan, Jack Richards. They were kind of the first in this particular line, and I was kind of wandering into it. Anyway, so 1978, I was really enjoying myself, and for about 4 years, everything was going fine, and I was really good at setting up groups in class, and I put all the students in groups, and I had a chairperson, or et cetera, and everything went well as far as I was concerned, and I was able to think about what I was going to have for lunch following class during the group work. And then it hit me. It was wondering, well, what exactly am I doing? Am I having any impact on their learning of English? And are they practicing their mistakes? The students were very happy, and as I get into something called role identity, you'll realize later that I had a role that the institution. I was in Yonsei University Foreign Language Institute, and we actually established that institute at that time. And the role I had specifically was entertainer. I was told, keep the students happy and that's it. And I was really good at it. I kept the students happy. But then this thing niggled me. It was like, well, am I having any impact? Are they learning any English? Are they teaching each other, incorrect English? And all this interlanguage and fossilization, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so that started my period of informal reflections. And I started my first teacher reflection group in Korea at that time. And I met with 2 other Korean teachers, and it was quite interesting. And I developed that further later when I decided to formalize my reflections. And I came to IUP for 2 reasons, 3 really, 2. The first was it was a very inviting summer option. And it was the only one in the US. I don't know if there's any at the moment. It still is. Of course, I didn't know what that option meant. But it seemed very inviting. You waltz in. Wasn't that your words to me?
Yeah.
You waltz in.
You waltz in.
And you waltz in, you take your courses, you read a little bit, you go out, etc. 4 or 5 years. If you do really push it, you can get it in 4 years. And you can even get a PhD. And I thought, well, okay, but I didn't really want a PhD, to be honest. I was curious about my own development. And at the same time, I was reading Jerry Gephardt's work and John Fanslow's. I don't know if you've heard of John Fanslow, who's since retired, but actually Fanslow's work really fascinated me, especially his book, Breaking Rules. It's not in print anymore, but if you ever have a chance, please read it. It changed my life as a teacher. I mean, Breaking Rules. duh. I love the title. But it's a fascinating book, and I still read it every now and then. In fact, I took it up recently for something I'm working on. But Jerry's work was very teacher-friendly. But I never connected Jerry with IUP, and I was writing, Dan Canasido was the director at that time, and I remember writing, in fact I was supposed to come in 1990, but my youngest daughter was born, and so we didn't come. We came in 1991, and Dan was no longer. I think Mike Williamson took over, yeah. Anyway, so 1991 I arrived. You all probably can relate to this. And I arrived with my family in tow. My youngest daughter wasn't even 1, and my eldest is 3, and my wife is Korean. She still is Korean. She still is my wife.
Last time we looked.
Oh, no, that was touch and go. So we arrived in Carriage House. Carriage House?
Yeah.
The smell of that carpet is still there. I'm not sure we want this on video. Anyway, we arrived in Carriage House, and I said, I'll wander up to the campus. I'll wander up and, you know, I was 3 days late. What's 3 days, right? Because the plane, I couldn't get a flight. So I wander into linguistics and the English teacher. Great course. No longer in existence, unfortunately, I hear. Anyway, great course. And the professor was 7'9" tall. And Dan, in typical fashion with the glasses, came up and says, well, you know, you're 3 days late. And I was, yeah. You can't just waltz in here 3 days late. I remember that sentence. But he says, but he says, I'll give you a break, because I think he heard my family was in tow. Anyway, I went to class immediately, and then I couldn't even go home. I had to take Pat Hartwell, God rest his soul, his class in the afternoon. And I went back, and my wife said to me, you know, where were you? I only went up to have a look around campus, you know, and they had no diapers and no water and no nothing, and they were, you know, beginning to die from the smell of Carriage House. And so that night, I wrote my first journal. Dr. Canasido made us write a journal, and I wrote my first journal. And when I knew I was coming here, I found my file. So I'd like to share my first journal ever at IUP in that time. By the way, I'll get into more content later if So, linguistics and the English teacher. And the journal is a first class journal entry, June 13, 1991. Some of you weren't even born at that time. Home is home, you know, Carriage House. 11 p.m. Build, you know, jet lag, everything into this, right? Here's my first journal entry. I was totally lost with regard to the class content. As I just arrived from Korea, I tried to follow as best I could. I can show you the journal if you want. My first reaction was one of surprise that the class was so student-centered with minimum interventions by the professor. I think Dan was asleep. I don't know. I tried to explore the group dynamics that were taking place. There was a chairperson, a timekeeper, a type of reporter. The group tried to follow the agreed-upon time allocation for the discussion of each of the 3 articles. I'm experiencing a type of academic culture shock. I was totally and utterly shocked. And the only thing that saved me was jet lag. Because for the first week, I was totally spaced, jet lag-wise, which actually, I was above it all. I was just flying. So that was my introduction to this class. Now, I'm not going to harper on it too much, but I'd like to share my last journal entry for that class on the same first, what would you call it, first session of the summer. Okay. And it's last class journal entry, the 10th of the 7th, 1991, 6 p.m. home. Never in my wildest dream did I expect to be subjected to so much pressure. Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
I came into boot camp a raw recruit. And here's more. After the first class, I realized now what I do not know and what I have to do. I find this both exciting and depressing. I wonder, can I do it? Why am I doing it? Should I continue? Can I make it? So, keep that in your mind as I go through what I go through.